Welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Tennessee currently sitting 14th in the class of 2025, and I get it, that's not good enough. I think 2024 is a crucial year for Josh Heupel on the football field, but also on the recruiting trail. And one of those position groups that I think Tennessee has a legitimate shot to build on is the offensive line. You know, they did a good job in the class of 24, adding Bennett Warren, a legitimate four-star offensive tackle, William Satterwhite, Max Anderson, those three guys all in the top 300. They also added Gage Ginther, a guy who I think most of us would agree is severely underrated, but I think they've got a good opportunity in the class of 2025 to continue to build on that. We talk about Nico, and then you add George McIntyre at quarterback, and that takes your window of opportunity from 2 years to 4 years. You've got elite quarterbacks in your quarterback room. Now you got to add some guys to protect them, and I've been talking a lot about these targets on the offensive line. I've mentioned David Sanders, the five-star offensive tackle out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I think Tennessee has a very realistic shot at landing him. He's one of the top 5 players overall in the country. I've talked about Josh Petty, a 4-star offensive tackle out of Georgia. Juan Gaston, another 4-star offensive tackle. I think Tennessee has a legitimate shot. They're in it deep with these guys. We're going to see how the next few weeks and months play out. A lot of guys starting to schedule visits. One of those guys kind of surprised me. If you remember when George McIntyre committed, this guy kind of came out of the woodwork. That is 4-star offensive tackle Jaylen Matthews. He dropped his top 6 yesterday, and you can see there on the screen who he's got included in that. Got Georgia, Maryland, Miami, Rutgers, Syracuse, and Tennessee in the mix. Now, he was committed to Penn State back in January of 2023. He decommitted this past September, so we'll see how much of a factor Penn State is in this thing. Per VolQuest, sounds like Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, all three definitely in the mix. But they believe, VolQuest, the insiders, the experts, they believe that Tennessee appears to be the team to beat right now. I was reading an article over at 247 Sports, and this was asking Jaylen Matthews on his interest in Tennessee. He says it's the offensive line. It's Coach Ellerby. It's Coach Heupel. Says they built a really good relationship with me since they offered during my freshman year. Of course, there was a time where they stopped by since they were focusing on the 24 class, but it's heating up a little bit. I've been telling you guys, business is about to pick up. The dead period is over. Visits are getting scheduled. Recruiting is about to get fun again, so make sure you're dialed in for it. He goes on to say, I was down there for a visit. We hung out. I met the family. We ate at Gus's Fried Chicken. We had a good time. Felt like Tennessee, Maryland, Georgia, Syracuse, Ohio State were all making him a priority. And he also went on to say this. I like this quote from Jaylen Matthews. He says, it's not just about NIL for them. It's about the relationships we are building. And then he goes on to say, NIL has messed up football just a little bit, but things are going well. How many of you guys agree with that? Put it in the comment section. Do you think NIL is ruining college football? We're going to take a look at Jaylen Matthews, what he brings to the table. Is Tennessee really in this thing deep? But first and foremost, do me a favor, guys, smash the thumbs up below the video. It's quick, free, easy. It helps the channel, and I would appreciate it. If it's your first time on the Talkin VAWLS Network, welcome. We're not experts here. We're not insiders. We're not media. This channel is for the fans, by the fans. If you like what we do, make sure you subscribe. Click that bell for notifications. You're not going to miss out when we go live or when we drop a video. Right now, we're live every Tuesday night, so tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be live right here on the Talkin VAWLS Network. Yeah, we'll be playing NCAA 14 revamped. We'll be having a good time, but we'll be talking all things Tennessee football, so come check that out. We got some fun live film breakdowns coming your way, and spring camp is right around the corner, so we're going to do a fan call-in show the Sunday before spring camp kicks off, and then we're going full steam ahead into covering this football team going into the spring. But let's take a look at Jaylen Matthews, 6'5", 275 pounds out of Toms River, New Jersey, 4-star prospect, top 150 according to the On3 industry rankings, a top 15 offensive tackle. His rankings kind of up and down, right, as you look across the board there. On3 has him as the number 75 ranked player in the country. 247 Sports has him down around 230. ESPN, does ESPN really count? I don't really factor in anything that they say when it comes to recruiting, but On3's been pretty spot on with their evaluations. I think they're the best site, also like 247 Sports. But the offensive line, one of those position groups that's tough, right? It's tough to gauge, so I try to go to the scouting report. Let's go take a look, see what the experts say about Jaylen Matthews. There is no scouting report on him yet. So I'm going to let you guys be the talent scout. You guys take a look at his tape. When I looked at it, what I like, and again, I'm no expert or no insider, but he does play defense as well. On the defensive side of the ball, he shows a little bit of that quickness. Offensively, he shows physicality. He finishes a lot of blocks. One of the things I like in one of these clips, he doesn't even touch the guy. He shows good footwork, quickness. Look right here. It's this play right here. Never touches the guy. The guy's trying to dance. Doesn't want to make contact with big Jaylen Matthews. So you guys can watch the tape. Let me know what you think about his game. He was offered by Tennessee back on August of 2022. And then again, it went kind of quiet. There was not a lot of momentum. He wasn't one of the names that I was really familiar with. We were talking about David Sanders, Josh Petty, Juan Gaston. I wasn't really familiar with Jaylen Matthews until George McIntyre commits to the University of Tennessee on January the 22nd, 2024. 12 days later, Jaylen Matthews in town for Junior Day. And if you remember when George committed, Jaylen was one of the ones that went to Twitter and said, hey, George, need somebody to block for you. So that's the impact of George McIntyre, five-star quarterback, being a part of this football team. En route to that visit for Junior Day that he took 12 days later, he told VolQuest that he was actually texting with George McIntyre en route to that visit. He said that George told him that he was going to come down when he takes an official visit. He goes on to say he needs a nice core offensive line group to take care of him and one that he trusts. We are building a good relationship in trust. Again, that George impact. But you look at the offensive line, and you know what I said earlier, and I got it from one of the posters on VolQuest. They made a good comment, right? You're talking about the Nico era. It's time to win. It's time to go get that national championship, that SEC championship, get back to what Tennessee football is. Nico's plan is to be here in 2024 and 2025 and then be off to the NFL. That's his plan. That's what he wants to do. That's what his plan has been all along. When George committed, that took that window of opportunity from 2 years to 4 years. So now you've got that extra time. And when we look at the offensive line for 2024, right, it's laid out. Like, you got all the veterans coming back. You added Lance Hurd via the transfer portal. Nico's got a solid offensive line. I question the depth a little bit, but that kind of bleeds into George looking for that offensive line to protect him. I think this class of 25 that I rattled off at the top of the video, ton of potential. Tennessee has a very realistic opportunity to add some studs here with David Sanders, Jaylen Matthews that we're talking about right now, Petty and Gaston. But some of these young guys on the roster, I want to see them come along in spring camp. I want to see them come along in fall camp. Some of the redshirt sophomores, it's time to put up or shut up. It's time for guys like Vyson Lang, Masai Reddick, Brian Grant, Shamrod Umarov going into his redshirt freshman year. It's time to see some of these guys push and show that they're going to develop and grow and be a part of this football team. You got some pretty solid incoming freshmen with Bennett Warren, Satterwhite, Max Anderson, Gage Ginther. I want to see some of these guys develop. I want to see Glenn Ellerby get something out of the guys that he brought in out of high school. But back to Jaylen Matthews talking about that visit from February. This is a quote he gave VolQuest. Said, I enjoyed hanging around the players and the coaches, getting to know the Tennessee lifestyle a little bit. It's my first time down here in Tennessee. It's nice. We hung out with a lot of the other recruits, built a relationship with them, and they are moving up in the recruiting thing for me. He goes on to talk about Glenn Ellerby. Said he reminds me a lot of my O-line coach at high school. He's a very personable guy, treats his O-line like they're his son. I look up to him most definitely, and I would like to play for him one day. They are definitely up there in the rankings after this visit. Now, plans to be back here during the spring, but he also went ahead and scheduled an official visit. He will visit Tennessee officially on June the 14th. Also got some other ones scheduled with Syracuse on the 31st, Rutgers on June 8th, Georgia on the 21st, and I do believe that Miami is also rumored to get an official visit. However, that not yet scheduled. Plans to make his decision sometime between July and September. But again, when you look at the four big offensive tackles, when you look at the four guys that we're really pushing for, we're putting some momentum, we're putting some steam on in the class of 25, the four guys that I continue to rattle off, how many do you need? How many of those guys between David Sanders, Jaylen Matthews, Petty, Juan Gaston, how many of those dudes do you need in the boat? Are you satisfied with two? It reminds me of going back to the class of 22, the big four offensive tackles. You wanted to land two or three of those guys, you got one, and that's why we're seeing some depth issues here on this offensive line. But jump into the comment section. What do you think about Jaylen Matthews? What do you think about the big four offensive tackle prospects Tennessee is tracking down? I want to hear from you guys. Smash the thumbs up on the way out the door. I would greatly appreciate it. But that's going to do it for this one. This is the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.